In the modern world, the word apocalypse has lost its true meaning. It has come to be used as a word to describe destruction or devastation, perhaps synonymous with Armageddon. Nothing could be further from the truth. The word apocalypse means a great revealing, an uncovering, something once shrouded, now known. In today's video, I would like to share some evidence with you behind a theory that I've had for a long time, that this great revealing that is going to come has to do with the continent of Antarctica. Now, some have thought my fixation with it has just been evidence of the rantings of a madman on YouTube. While I would humbly submit that it wasn't so very long ago that explorers from Europe returned to the king and queen with stories of these great fantastic dragons that existed in the water that were a dozen feet long, maybe even longer, that weighed 1,000 pounds or more, that could take a man in a single bite and disappear. They were laughed at and they were scorned. They also talked about a land that had areas that a squirrel could climb a tree and go for 100 miles and never touch the ground. Laughable. But what do we know now to be the truth? There is also some evidence that historically sea levels were a great deal lower. That would have changed how seafarers navigated. It would have changed the face of the planet in a way that we don't understand, that has been lost. Divers have gone down in hundreds of feet of water and found these large structures all over the world, in Asia, Bimini, the Caribbean, South America. They're everywhere. And some might ask, well, what does this have to do with Antarctica? We've also found, as we discussed yesterday, these devices, incredibly complex devices that could have only been created by technologies that didn't exist 2,200 years ago, which is how old the Antikythera mechanism is. It was encased in rock. It was pulled up by a ship off Greece. There's no way that any civilization at that time had that ability. You see, we've lost evidence of something. To recreate the mechanism, they needed to use all sorts of modern techniques to scan through the rock, and even once they knew what they had to build, it still took them years and years to recreate it. How could they possibly have done this? This is a picture from the actual recreations. How tiny these gears were, how specifically perfect they had to be with no known lubricants. It points to a lost civilization. There's also another piece of evidence that I don't think anyone out there within the sound of my voice can debunk. We know that Antarctica is really two places: East Antarctica and West Antarctica. They are two very distinct land masses. How did they know that in the 16th century? See, this is a map over here on the right, made by a French explorer, that shows two distinct land masses with a giant sea in between them. How could they have known that in the 16th century? We didn't know that until the 20th century. And we had to go down there and confirm it with fleets of ships. There's a world that has been lost. Knowledge that has been lost. An entire chapter of history completely erased from our consciousness. And I truly believe when they speak of an apocalypse that's coming, a revealing, something shrouded, once known, now being re-examined, this is what they're talking about. There's also this very strange book called the Voynich Manuscript. And regardless of anyone else's claims, no one has truly deciphered it. They have confirmed that it is of European origin, but where the information came from in the language, they have no clue. But there are some very strange images. Castles in places where there are none. Dragons. And this very strange with blue flower that we covered in another video in the upper left that looks very, very much like an award given to the Knights Templar. This is the Order of Leopold from Belgium. And many months ago we talked about the connection between the Knights Templar and that king and the exploration of Antarctica. Because they talked about a place, the Templars did, where they secured the Ark that nobody has been able to find yet. And this final piece of evidence that I'm going to share has to do directly with the state of Florida. It's the Calusa Indians. I truly believe that Antarctica, when the sea levels were lower, was a lush tropical paradise, much as science has already admitted. Something happened in the 1700s, and it caused Antarctica to be isolated. I truly believe it was the Great Earthquake in Japan, the largest earthquake ever in Japan, that sent a wall of water down there that destroyed the land bridge. But there's an interesting piece of information that many people don't know about the Calusa Indians. And I have it right here from their society and their wiki. The capital of the Calusa and where the rulers administered from was Mound Key, near present-day Estero, Florida. There's an eyewitness account from 1566 of a king's house on Mound Key that was large enough for 2,000 people to stand inside. 2,000 people. It was huge. You see, the Calusa Indians were unlike any other Native American tribe. When the Spanish encountered them for the first time, the Spanish got it handed to them pretty bad. It was the first tribe that they had encountered that were peer-to-peer military threat. Now, let me show you guys something. Just for reference, this is Florida, right here, of course. Lake Okeechobee, Miami. I have it kind of turned upside down here. This is Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Naples, Marco Island. This is Tampa, St. Pete. Now remember, Mound Key. This was the capital, right here, of the Calusa tribe. This is an island very close. Does that look familiar? Does the shape of this clearing look very, very strange? That it still exists to this day in a cleared state? It should. It's virtually an identical replica of the continent we know to be Antarctica. And even this area here, right here, where there's a lower area where there's water revealed, matches up perfectly with a bay right here known on the continent of Antarctica. It's covered in ice in this image, but right here there is a huge bay that goes in that separates east from west Antarctica. Can anyone explain this? See, I think this is the real story they don't want people to know. That there was a civilization, a very, very advanced one. That something very bad happened. And some of them left, and some of them remained under the ice. They may be down there under the ice to this day. They may have found evidence of this. The Calusa had an organizational structure of government that did not exist anywhere else in North America. Where did they learn that from? The Spanish didn't teach it to them. How could a 16th century map maker know that Antarctica was two distinct landmasses enough to create this type of a map? Where did this device come from? Who created the Voynich manuscript? See, all these questions point to something. They point to something being shrouded that may be revealed very soon. People talk about global warming and climate change and the melting ice. It's only going to be a matter of time. It's only going to be a matter of time, and somebody is going to stumble on something down there. And it's going to change the world. It's going to change history as we know it. That's not I'll give you the location for this. It's not hard to find. If you zoom in on Florida, just find Fort Myers, Cape Coral, and this little bay down here. Charlie Key, Bonita Springs, and Mound Keys right here. And it's pretty easy to find. And you can look at this in virtually any year you want to historically in Google Earth Pro, and that clearing is there. And that clearing stays exactly that shape. Year after year after year after year. Not natural. You would have to ask, why didn't this all grow back in? That would have taken some serious level of technology. So like I said, there were explorers and people that did and said things back during the Renaissance, and they were labeled absolute kooks and crazy and nuts. And I guess if that's the label I have to wear, I'll wear the label. But until someone goes down there and looks definitively and says, yep, it's just a giant rock with wind and snow and seals and penguins, having explored the entire thing, to me, it should be the number one priority. Before Mars, for sure, before Venus or any other planet in the solar system, for sure. I used the analogy before, and I'll use it again. If you had a house that had 3 stories, main floor, maybe a basement, second story, and a third story, and you kept hearing and seeing strange things, and you hadn't even gone up and looked in half of the third story, all the doors on that side were shut, you hadn't gone down the hallway, you hadn't explored any of it, but then you told everyone who lived in the home with you that, yeah, it's coming from outside. It's coming from some guy down the block. All those strange things in the sky. All these strange discoveries that we have no explanation for. It's pretty clear to me. We have a lot more work to do, and this is where it needs to begin. So I will leave this there. The Voynich manuscript, even the Phaistos disc, I didn't even talk about that today. The Antikythera device, the ancient maps, and the Calusa Indians all have no explanation but one. And I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who has come recently and joined me at Patreon. It's $1 a month. Could definitely use your support, especially with the way YouTube's being lately. But I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who already has. It's really helped out a lot. God bless. Happy holidays, and we will see you guys next time.